Good morning guys, welcome back to another video. So some of you may have seen the original video to this, the original chat with Anthony Walsh, and the quality wasn't that great, so I decided to take the video down, and I've got him back on the line again today. I hope you take some training tips from this video. If you do, be sure to leave a thumbs up, and I hope you enjoy it. Alright, so we are joined again with Anthony Walsh. We've already recorded this video once, but we had a few technical issues and a few problems. But Anthony, welcome back to the channel, and thank you for taking the time to chat to me today.
Yeah, we're back for take two. Hopefully, better internet this time.
Yeah. All right. So before I ask you the questions, so I asked my audience to ask a few questions that they wanted to get your perspective from. But before I ask you those questions, can you just explain a little bit about yourself? Where have you come from? Were you a racer, and how did you get into this position where you are now?
Yeah, cheers, Cam. I know some guys may have picked up bits and pieces of what I said last time, but I'll recap some of that. Firstly, thanks for having me on the channel. I'm a big fan of the channel. It's gathering a bit of momentum over here in Ireland, so it's a great privilege to be on it. So my background is I was actually a law student coming through law school, and I finished law school and I had an opportunity to go away to France racing for a Division National team in France, and I was like, oh, I can't pass this up. This is too good to be true. Like a paid holiday for the year. Went out there. Turns out it wasn't quite the holiday I was hoping for. Hard racing, but I was there, and then it was only ever meant to be a 1-year project, and I was meant to go back to law. And then I got offered a contract with a Conti team in the States, Stellis, and I was over there, and I was like, another year. I'm like, oh, shit. I've deferred my legal loans for a year, so I was like, I need to figure out a way to start paying this. So I started coaching a few buddies, and they started winning races. And then their friends started asking them, holy shit, how are you getting so good so fast? And they came on some referral business, and it kind of grew from there. So kind of very humble beginnings, born out of necessity. And it started out with a handful of clients. Then within a year, I think I was up, this was 2013, in a year I was up to around 20 clients, nothing crazy. Now I suppose fast forward 3 years, I think we've about 15 coaches at A1 now, up over 1,400 clients. We got an app, we got loads of cool platforms. We're not doing as good as you on YouTube, but we're still there.
You won't be far off. You must be one of the biggest coaching companies in the world then, with that amount of cyclists under your belt.
Yeah, I don't really know. Yeah, some people, you're saying, we're the biggest in Europe at the moment, but I don't really know how you gauge that. We're big on some social platforms. We're not so big on others. We're like 3,000 subs on YouTube. I think you're up at like 5,000-6,000 subs on YouTube. Like we've 25,000 on Instagram. But for me, just the important thing is just client satisfaction.
Yeah.
I prefer to have 20 happy clients than 1,400 unhappy clients.
Exactly. The clients have got to be winning races. You can have 100,000 followers, but if your clients aren't winning races, then your goal's not being accomplished, does it?
Yeah. What's really cool for us as well now. Initially, we started out focusing coaching a lot of pro guys, and we were looking, how can we get 1% improvement out of a pro guy? And then I thought, actually, let's run experiments. This was about 12 months ago. Let's run experiments, figure out if we take all the sports science that's available that pro guys use, a lot of the same coaching methods you're probably going through. Let's see what happens when we take that and we apply it to guys in their 30s and 40s who are only able to train 6 hours a week, who have jobs, families. Let's see what happens when we apply all the science to them. And the results of that have been crazy. So instead of getting, like, with some of our pro riders, we'll get like a 1% gain in 12 months in their FTP. With these guys, we get 20% gains in their FTP.
Wow.
Because granted, they've quite low starting points, but they've never had this level of analysis and detail and, analytics and uploading their data into analytics platforms and stuff like that. So super exciting for me because, it's very motivating because on the back, like someone was asking me why I'm coaching at the moment. And it's kind of legacy is kind of what we're after, in that some of these guys, like, it sounds corny with emails you get from them. Like, it is kind of changing people's lives. Like, these are guys, some of them are losing 15, 20 kilograms, and now they're able to do things with their kids and their wife they weren't able to do 5-10 years ago. Yeah. So that stuff's very motivating for me. So that's a big motivator for keeping going.
Yeah. And so I guess the next question leads on to what you're talking about, the pro stuff. Do you have do you coach any professional riders? Do you any, top domestic riders? What's sort of the top of your caliber?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of pro riders across Ireland, a couple in the UK, some in Belgium, women, men, Paralympic athletes. It's always, everybody's striving for something that's unique to them, that's very personal to them. So it's hard to say one person's, because we have riders with a Conti team and they're getting top 10 in races in Belgium.
Yeah.
It's hard to prioritise that over, we've, say, Peter Ryan, for instance, he was an Irish Paralympic athlete. He was a guy who sort of turned his life right around after he suffered with alcohol and depression and things like that. And to get him, he qualified for Rio Paralympics last year. He's visually impaired. And now he's on the road to Tokyo next time out. So
wow.
Athletes like that are very powerful. But yeah, we've a good span of athletes across, I suppose, all categories and genders and disciplines.
Yeah, cool. All right, so now let's move on to the question. So the first question is it's more of a nutritional question. So they say if you go out for a ride one day, for example, do a 4-hour ride and burn about 3,000 calories, after that ride, should you consume that same 3,000 calories? Is that caloric value that you consume the same as what you've burnt?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I suppose it boils down to what your goal is on this camp. Like if you're a guy who's looking to lose weight and you're going to go out and your ride is 3,000 calories, you need to make sure in that day that you're taking in less than 3,000 calories. So you're going to be in a calorie deficit for the day. So you're going to end up being on a net reduction in calories over a period of time. If you are trying to lose weight, like a lot of cyclists are, where like, self-conscious supermodels all trying to lose weight, it is important to not run too heavy a deficit all the time. But if your goal is to maintain weight, you need to replace the full 3,000. Okay. So it's this tipping point because, take you, for example, your goal, it definitely isn't to just lose weight. Yeah. Your goal might be to lose weight and improve your power. Yeah. So just starving yourself is not going to achieve that goal. You need a very slight calorie reduction that's going to allow you to still train at your optimum level. Yeah. So that's really the key if you are trying to lose weight. And it's knowing the times to, exercise a little bit of restraint. When you're at a stage race in a heavy training block, that's not when you want to be running a calorie deficit. Yeah. It's the recovery day when you're having like 10 biscuits and 2 helpings of dessert. That's when you need to start thinking a little bit of restraint there.
Desserts are my weakness.
You and me both, mate.
All right, moving on. Next question: how many hours a week would you recommend for a youth under 16 cyclist, and how many of those hours should be like specific interval sessions?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I think it depends on the rider's training age for me rather than their actual age. If a rider's coming into the sport at 8 years of age, I have teammates, my teammate of mine, I'm thinking of in particular, he's Italian and he started racing at like 8 years old. So at 16, he's already 8 years in development. Yeah. So he can take a much heavier load than somebody who's just coming into the sport, like fresh. They've been inactive predominantly till they were 15. Now they come into the sport. So it kind of depends a little bit. I would say the primary focus for a 16-year-old should be on fun and enjoyment. Yeah. It's like we're looking at not them winning the under 16 or the under 17 nationals. We want to look at them for longevity in the sport. We've all heard this 10,000 hour rule where you need to put in 10,000 hours of purposeful practice before you hit your peak in the sport. So you're looking at athletes not hitting their peak until 27, 28 years of age, assuming they're starting at 16, 17. So the focus should really be on enjoyment, fun, training with your friends, and never on intervals work. Having said that, it is possible to build in some structured intervals with fun. For example, if we want to do a sprint session during the week, instead of just going out on a country road on your own, doing 10-second sprints with your headphones in, you can do things with your buddy where he leads you out for 30 seconds, then you pop off his wheel for 10 seconds and you're sprinting for a town sign. And the loser has to buy the cans of Coke on the way home. Stuff like that to just keep it fun. Yeah. Or you can have like a little running tally each week, and then at the end of the week, there's a little forfeit that you have to do. But it's really important to keep it fresh and keep it fun for the young guys.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like we said last time, cycling is such a hard sport mentally and physically. Like you don't want to come in at such a young age and just all you got to be thinking about is how hard you can train. You got to do this 10 hours a week. You got to be training this amount and. Yeah, I think keeping it fun is always important. Sorry, someone's ringing me.
Oh, you're busy man. Castelli ringing you there, was it?
Castelli, yeah, for the sponsorship deal. All right, so Gareth says you have three sessions a week: one social ride, one social club ride at 75 kilometers, and 2 Zwift sessions. What's the best thing to do?
Like, really, if you're doing 1 social ride and 2 Zwift sessions a week, you probably aren't getting the adaptations you need to progress week on week. The analogy I use with this is the guys who go to the gym. We've all seen them where you go to the gym like 3 times a week for 10 years and you don't get any improvement in fitness, because the way we get fitter, it's a process of stressing the body, then we adapt to that stress, and then we need to re-stress it again. If you're just doing the same thing week 1, week 2, week 3, week 1, week 2, you might be getting some gains because there's an initial stress, but your body's going to adapt to that stress, and then it's just going to plateau, and you're going to find yourself. Also, you got to think on this, Cam, that we've got a lot of different zones. So, your endurance zone, your tempo zone, your sub-threshold, threshold, capacity, and then like neuromuscular sprint zones, things like that. Each one of those zones, we're riding at a specific intensity, and there's an associated like physiological adaptation in each one of those zones. Yeah. So if you're only training in 1 or 2 zones, say out on a social coffee ride, brew ride, as our new coach Alan Davis says, Aussie lad has me brainwashed. Like if you're cruising to the cafe, like in zone 1, there's a very narrow set of physiological adaptations you're going to get from that ride. Yeah. So you need to, if you're looking to maximize your progression, you need to make sure your training cycle, your macro cycle we call it, is built focusing on different zones and thus getting different physiological adaptations from those zones.
Okay. Next question, Bill asks, big hills or intervals on flats, which is better for your typical Irish road race? Now, this is a question you're going to have to answer because I'm here in England, in the UK, and you're the guy over in Ireland. So for your typical Irish road race, do you want to be training on the flats or on the hills?
Although I did just find out your family's from Cookstown, so you were actually
that is true. Yeah. Irish. Moved over to England when I was 5 years old, just as I started school. Yeah, we made the wise decision.
Back over to the mainland.
That's it. Yeah.
I suppose, Cam, it depends on what you want to win. If you want to win the National Criterium Championships, you've got to be training on flat roads. Yeah. If you want to win the National Hill Climb Championships, these are obviously 2 ends of a very severe spectrum. If you want to win the National Hill Climb Champs, you've got to be doing most of your training on the hills. So this goes to reverse engineering the demands of your race. So think about the race you want to win, and then let's figure out how to break down the demands of the race. So if I want to win, say Tour of Ulster finished here in Ireland at the weekend, the final stage is a circuit race with, 3 or 4 30-second puncher climbs on it. So there's no sense in me going out and ride 2 20-minute steady threshold climbs every week, and that's the bread and butter of my training, because it doesn't replicate the demands of the race. I need to train to have explosive power on those little 30-second risers. So it's easy to go and figure out, get a Strava GPX file from last year's race. You can even program that into Wahoo Kicker now, and that'll even simulate the ride for you if you're into that sort of stuff. Or else figure out, like, if it's a 1-minute climb, what sort of power was the winner riding up that, and then go and reverse engineer that, build it into your training plan. But a good coach he's gonna do all that for you.
Yeah, no, I know a lot of the time that's what I'll do, particularly if it's a race that I've never done before or a circuit I don't know. I'll just put into Google, so for example, Cockermouth road race, Strava, click on the first one, and you can normally sort of find someone who got within the top 5, and you look at their profile, and if they've got the top 5, they're likely to have a power meter. You can see what power they're doing up certain climbs, and then I'll cater my training towards that race and that type of circuit. And it's all about, in my opinion, and as you just sort of said there, it's all about training specifically for the race. And I think that's obviously a big part of it.
Yeah, you got to reverse engineer that.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, so next question. Ben Reed says, the week before a race, do you taper? Do you keep the intensity? What kind of sessions would you do?
So if it's your priority race and you've been building your season into so a season should be built. We talk about a season, we call it a macro cycle. So that's the full length of your season. So that should be built into a period of peaks and troughs. So we recommend that athletes have no more than 3 peaks in a single season. Okay. So a peak in form means we want to get somebody who's both fit and fresh. That's what we mean when they're at a peak in form. So to give you an example, if a rider just finishes the Tour de France and the following day, me and you are going to debate whether this rider is likely to be going well, like we most likely come to the conclusion that he's just finished the Tour de France, he's undoubtedly very fit, but he's quite fatigued. Yeah. Now, if a rider has just rested for 3 weeks, he's very fresh, but he's not very fit. So what we want is that combination of fitness and freshness. So coming up to a race, this is how we peak a rider. We train them all the way up, so we build their form all the way up. Like like we talked about in the previous question, where we're building the demands of their event into their training. We're doing that all the way up to about a week before the race, and then we start a taper. So a taper is a period of reduced duration and increased intensity. So in the week before the race, like a typical pre-race week for one of our athletes, assuming the race is on the Sunday, will be the Monday and Friday off. The Saturday pre-race day, like a 1 hour with 2 by 10 minutes zone 3, 2 by 1 minutes like full blast. And then on the Tuesday to the Thursday, on the Tuesday, I would do 2 to 3 Tabata efforts. On the Tuesday, 2 Tabata efforts. And on the Thursday, 1 Tabata effort. And I'll explain what a Tabata effort is. So on the Tuesday session, when you have 3 Tabata efforts scheduled, what I would say is you do about a 40-minute session. So it's quite short, but it's going to be very intense. So it's going to be a 4-minute interval I'm going to ask them to do. And it's going to be 20 seconds in upper zone 5, 10 seconds recovery, 20 seconds upper zone 5, 10 seconds recovery. And we repeat that for 4 minutes. Then we take 4 minutes off. Then we go again. We take 4 minutes off. We go again. So we're going to go 3 sets on the Tuesday, 2 sets on the Wednesday, 1 set on the Thursday. Then the Friday off, Saturday pre-race day, Sunday race. That's a very standard taper for our athletes. And because of the way the zones work, the zones are very relative to the person's ability. So, my zone 5 and your zone 5 are very different.
Yeah.
A pro rider zone 5 and a beginner zone 5 are very different. Yeah. So it works for everyone.
Cool. All right. Would you recommend any weight training? This is the last question. Would you recommend any weight training for cyclists, endurance cyclists? So I guess what they're trying to say here is, for example, like low cadence hill repeats, for example.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, we just finished a blog on that today. Talking about, as I was talking to Alan Davis, coaching for us now, he calls them strengthies.
Right.
So typically you're looking at a hill of 5 to 6%, and your cadence at around 40 to 45 rotations per minute, and you're looking to do maybe a 5-minute interval on this sort of hill, and that's on the bike, sport specific strength. And you could start off by doing maybe 2 of these efforts, building up to about 4 of them, and it's all year round. You can do these. They're muscular endurance, muscular force. It's really about the pedal stroke. It's about really emphasizing the pull up portion of the pedal stroke. Okay. So you can imagine you have like dog shit on your shoes and you're trying to scrape it off the edge of a sidewalk.
Yeah.
You want to be scraping down and then pulling up, really engaging your glutes all the way around the pedal stroke.
Okay.
Because a typical pedal stroke has dead spots. So if we use the analogy of a clock, where 12 o'clock is the top of your pedal stroke and 6 o'clock is the bottom.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have force through the pedal stroke at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. That's a dead spot. So we want to make sure to really force the pedal and scrape it up all the way around. So it's quite a hard interval. You're looking to do that in zone 3, but the focus is more on the technique and trying to engage those glutes and keep your core tight. I suppose the flip side of that on the bike strength is off the bike strength. And for a long time, I would have said that if you only have, it's probably still my position, if you only have a limited amount of time to train, like 6 hours a week, you need to put that on the bike. Yeah. If you've got extra time where you can get to the gym, it's definitely beneficial, but it's something that's more appropriate to start over the winter period. And then as we get into the season, you can do maintenance and stuff on it. But I think it's the on the bike strength specific stuff is definitely something that people should be incorporating into their training.
All right, very quickly, how would that strength training benefit you in a road race, for example?
Well, there was a good Eddie Merckx quote where he's talking about you don't win races by spinning small gears, you win them by pushing big gears. There's this misconception, I think it's kind of from the Lance Armstrong era, that if we spin a gear, we're transferring the load from our muscular system onto our cardiovascular system, and our heart doesn't fatigue at the same rate to our muscles. But what you got to remember with the pros is they're spinning big gears. There's a big difference between your club rider who thinks that spinning like a 39.17 is going to win them a race. The pros are spinning like the 53.14, the 53.13. Right. So you're never going to be able to spin those big gears unless you build that strength to do it. Yeah. So it's going to help, like the guys who are racing, that's going to help you just close those gaps. It's going to help you just, when you actually get clear after that 10-second burst, to extend that gap. That's the sort of, specific strength that's going to help with. So, I think that's a myth we can definitely dispel. That spinning gears is always the way to go.
That's it. That's very interesting, actually. And But yeah, that's the final question. So Anthony, thank you for taking the time today. Thank you for again taking the time. Sorry, I should say I've taken up enough of your time now. Thankfully, today's quality was a lot better and we didn't have any problems. So
yeah, cheers, Cam. Always a pleasure to chat. I'm sure we can do it again down the road. We must get you on our channel soon as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I will drop the link to A1 Coaching in the description down below. Go and check out their channel. They've got videos with talking about David Miller, loads and loads of coaching tips and videos and stuff. So yeah, I'll put their link down below. Go and check out their channel. And yeah, thanks.
Cheers, Cam. And you will hit up your viewers with a €50 off discount if any of them decide to come across with any coaching.
Thank you very much for that. So yeah, head over if you fancy coaching by A1. Head over, mention Cycling Cam, and they'll give you €50 off. All right, cheers.